Welcome back, lads, to the old Keep the Head podcast. We have not done this in, I don't know, a good 2 or 3 weeks. But, good man yourself. And on that point of shitting yourself, we just looked at the Radcliffe interview. Jim Radcliffe had an interview with Gary Neville. I think it looked like it was in his house or in some sort of boardroom anyway. And some uncomfortable questions popped up and even more uncomfortable answers, to say the least. So just to go over some of the notes that I took down from the interview, is that they owe over £300 million on players over the last 4 to 5 years. And this summer, if they don't buy any players, they still have to write a check for £90 million to start with to keep paying off these players. So people like Casemiro, Jadon Sancho was mentioned, Mason Mount, just to mention a few of the names. Joshua Xerxes, Highland, all these names over the last 3 to 4 years. Like £90 million before they even kick off this so-called rebuild. Like, there has to be a few talking points on that alone.
Oh,
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, we're back to fucking. Well, yeah, if whoever watches or listens to this fucking show, you know now you're getting exactly what you had for the first
hold
couple.
on. Are
Complete
we?
shy talk and him shitting himself. So when you're ready there, Jimmy shits. Pull your
No,
finger out, will you?
what's the first point there?
I just made the point. You weren't
The
listening at
point.
all, no?
It was about the money.
You were just busy trying to hold a poo in, were you? Fuck me.
No, you were saying something about they're up to the bollocks.
And to let you know, I don't edit these. Whatever you get, it's fucking raw, so you're getting it. You're a cunt. I was saying, if you want to
Oh,
open up your ears there,
I was listening. No, you said about the few bob on Mason Mount, the 90 mil
the whole
on
you
previous
found.
employees.
Yeah, I have a lot of talking points to go over, but yeah, they owe a few
So,
pound on that.
so if
Um,
you want to just go one by one, you start on that one, is it? Talk
yeah,
about that one
we'll
first.
start. We'll start about this
Right.
so-called rebuild and what they owe because they kind of
Well,
tie in together.
don't mind the rebuild. The rebuild is going to be an ongoing thing. The main thing is, I kind of took from that part was there's massive, obviously, cash flow problems because something else. I don't know if you said it or not, but you said I think over the last couple of years they've lost about 300 million.
Yeah,
They're losing about 100 plus million a year. Now that's like as you said, like in simple terms, uh, you're losing more than you make every year consistently. And
like
obviously, no business can do that. It just doesn't make any sense. And
no,
that's on top of, I don't know if that's included because he said they're losing about the guts of 100 plus million a year.
yeah,
Now, I don't know when he says like this summer, for example, their operating costs are like basically wages and all the rest of it compared to the money they're making and salaries and all the rest of it. Is he including that 80 million in that figure in terms of like losses,
I think so.
or
Yeah,
is
he's
that
also
see?
including salaries.
See, like I don't, I'm not talking about salaries. This is payments. This isn't salaries. Salaries is a different thing. Payments of players. Again, like they don't own Highland yet.
No,
They're already probably going to sell them, but they don't actually own them yet. They still owe money on Highland. They still owe money. They still owe Dortmund money for Sancho, even though they're paying half his wages to Chelsea.
mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's can happen. I mean, Chelsea are in the exact same boat with that, but just in terms of like the squad, the mismanagement, like even that little scenario, you look at that, like that's poor recruitment they're suffering from
Yeah,
because they're still paying for that mistake. Sometimes players don't work out, but when it's so consistent, you have Sancho and you even look at some of the players who left United and did better. Or
mm.
sorry, like doing, but like even you can say the most recent one, Anthony. You can look at McTominay. You can look at Alanga. There's loads of players like that that have left and kind of go on. But on that point, yeah, like you can kind of see he did kind of springboarding off that. He kind of like this is Jim Radcliffe now. He made a weird. He was talking about basically like equating player salaries to like the level of talent in the squad,
Yeah,
and I thought it was a really strange way because he basically said, "Oh, look, when you looked at Man United versus Arsenal." and he's like, I think he said if you basically take out all of our top earners, or basically everyone who earned a salary that played that game,
It was to do
we
with
would have had
injuries.
like a we would have had like a mid-table squad. But I'm thinking, well, like Arsenal also had injuries as
Yeah,
well. First of all, and second of all, like it's a really weird way to go. Like we're spending 350 million, 350,000 quid a week on Casemiro.
yeah,
He's if no, he is our highest earner. Therefore, he is our best talent kind of thing. And it's like,
yeah.
no, that's the problem.
It's the
You're
opposite.
putting them on massive wages, but these are the people. Like I'd actually argue at the moment, United's best team doesn't consist of the highest earners anymore.
No,
And this is the thing where it was just not that it meant too much, but you're kind of thinking this is the guy who knows. I know he doesn't own Man United, but basically I think the Glazers have gone. Look, we don't care anymore. Keep it going. So you could kind of say he's in charge of Man United right now. I think the actual team and the decisions,
more or less. Yeah,
and I think it's a weird way of looking at it to kind of say equating like the salary paid versus we don't the people who pay the highest salary to they're all injured and they're not playing kind of thing. And it was like I think that just means like you're paying high salaries to people that are not that good.
and that don't deserve them salaries. Yeah.
Um,
And then there was also a point made, obviously, that we're talking about money now, that United by December of 2025 would have ran out of money completely, basically bankrupt. The club shut down everything. So there has to be, and to combat that with some of the changes they were doing, obviously they started talking about it was a bit uncomfortable for him. He looked very uncomfortable talking about it. They had about 1,200 staff before they arrived, before Sir Jim Radcliffe and Ineos arrived. And just I jotted it down. They he mentioned near the very end, kind of two different points, that at the start he said he had about 1,200 staff. At the end he said we've about 700 staff now. That's over 500 staff in
yeah,
the space of less than a year that have got the bullet, and then that's not even including cutting lunches from the staff, cutting bonuses, cutting the £40,000 a month from former players that used to play in the 60s and the 70s.
I'm not even sure. I could be wrong. It could be 40,000 a year.
It could be 40,000 a year. I'm probably misremembering that. You could be right.
But
Either way,
that's what it.
40 grand is a drop in the ocean for Man United. Well, it isn't now, but it used to be.
No, no, no. It still is.
Yeah,
Like I'm sorry. Like when you're dealing with like that's what Gary Neville made that point, and he's like, "Look, I understand. Like you're the billionaire owner. Sorry, you've got people employed to run the club and make these decisions. Not every decision is going to be ran past you, but like a decision like that. I mean, Gary Neville made the point towards the end of it saying, "Look, I understand you're not going to be briefed on everything, but it's like the people you hire, they should have more of a connection and understand."
yeah,
But the thing I'd also say is these are not small decisions cutting that 40,000 because think
no,
about this, that small thing has now basically absolutely destroyed even further PR because people are saying we're dealing with hundreds of millions here. 40,000, I believe it's 40,000 a year on ex players, and it's a kit you whatever to get. I think it is.
mm,
Um, and now that's come back to bite him in the arse.
yeah,
Like if I'm in that position, I'm going, you make sure you brief me on them things, especially the small things,
yeah,
because all of a sudden, as he said, I'm waking up reading the paper and everyone's cursed me out again. Oh, Jim Radcliffe cuts more tea ladies' jobs. Jim Radcliffe, takes away the charity for the ex-players, 40 grand a year, and he's going, what? It's like you can't make small decisions like that, and I get to bite the bullet for it. It's like surely you sit there and think, no, we'll keep that. It's 40 grand. Jesus Christ. I mean, they did go as far as taking the stewards, every single steward in the stadium.
mm.
One of them gets 50 quid a week bonus. Used to.
yeah,
And then that's gone. I'm going,
yeah,
this is what should have been put to him because there's no answer for it. And then there's a few things where I do understand where he's coming from. I understand he's in a bad position, but from a Man United fan, I'm still a bit wary because I still don't think I don't think that man's fully grasped to the club. He's fully ingrained because he also said something else. I think it was the ticket prices. He caught himself out.
Yeah, that's what I
Where
wrote. I jotted it down. He was basically saying that it was near the end, but there was also a comment at the start that ticket prices will rise in into the next season, into the 2025-26 season. Um, what they are now, I think he was mentioning £66 a ticket. They're going to rise even more. He said it was a minuscule rise. They're still going to rise. People are not happy about it to begin with. That's a kick in the teeth to begin with. But then he also made the point, kind of linking these together. Would you rather I spend the money our fans give us on free lunches or a player in the summer? And obviously Gary was dumbfounded. Like, why can't we have both? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What do
I
you?
was kind of go to the point of that he was on about, not being briefed and everything else.
Yeah.
What he said that I think he said the tickets rose last year, and he kind of tried to play it off.
Mm.
And he's like, "Oh well, I was there, but I didn't make that decision. It wasn't kind of all
Yeah. It
on me. It
wasn't
was
on me.
somebody. It wasn't on me. It was on somebody else." But I'm
Mm.
saying, hold on a second. You're having this interview now, this PR interview, obviously to be grilled, to be seen like a man of the people. That show you're brave, to show your face, get a bit of PR back. You basically just said you weren't aware of them cutting the charity. You weren't aware of them when Gary even said to make up the difference. Like that's why I think it's 40,000 a year. Is because Gary suggested, hold on a second, get Bruno and Harry Maguire to have a dinner.
Yeah.
A private dinner where they talk to people and do whatever. That raises 50, 60,000.
Yeah.
And he was like, that was never said to me. And Gary's like, how was nothing said to you?
Like,
Like
that's just off
why?
the top of his head.
It's the most it's a common thing people do. And he was like, I wasn't aware they were cutting it. I wasn't aware there could have been an alternative to raise the money internally.
Yeah.
And there was also things which I thought Gary was talking about. There was a thing the women's team won something. There was a dinner, and they cut all transport or something or the buses. And Bruno Fernandez wanted to pay for it, and I think Jim Radcliffe or whoever in charge, whoever's the brains in charge of it, said no, you're not allowed, because
Yeah.
he's the captain of the men's team and said we've no problem paying for that. We're getting egregious money anyway. And Jim Radcliffe said no. There's a lot more than what's going on, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot more
And
behind closed doors.
the way the club has still been run, I'd be worried about because he keeps on saying that he wasn't aware of certain things, and I'm thinking, I don't understand, man. Like you're now running Man United, you should be aware of everything. I want to be briefed on
I'll
every
be
single
honest.
cut you're making,
I
everything.
think that was just for the public eye. I think he knows exactly what's going on, and I think he
I
made a lot of
suppose
these decisions. Obviously, it's easy. It's you
maybe,
can see it.
but it doesn't make any sense. Guys, the point I was making on before I jumped off about the stewards, it's such minuscule. I'm talking about
Buttons.
50 euro, £50 a week. Sorry,
Mm.
for a year, £50 a week
Yeah.
for a year, a couple of grand, two, like whatever. I think it was one steward a week would do it. So 50 quid a week, and they cut that. Now they get a certificate so they can put it on the fridge of the best steward or whatever. But I'm going, this is people's like, oh, I got an extra 50 quid this week, grand. I can now pay for groceries or fucking.
Yeah.
I can put it towards something like my car broke down, or I can get the children to school. No, now I got a certificate to put on the fridge. Like I don't understand that because you're talking about you write that number in all the big numbers going around. You're probably talking about hundreds of millions, hundreds of thousands, and you look at that and you cut that. I'm going, hell, like surely you'd want to keep small little victories for people. Oh, that's staying. That's nothing. We'll look after that. We'll
Yeah.
just sit. We'll just swallow that cost. Look, we still don't look after our people. Like, and then I guarantee you, they still have their expenses. A lot of them will still have their expenses. You know what I mean? And you're going, hold on a second. This is the problem that I think now occurs, that they really like laser in on all the small things like that.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting there going, perfect. But if I see any executive, having, an executive limousine drive up and down places, and that costs, 6 grand probably a go,
Yeah.
and maybe private jets being paid, I'm going, hold on a second. That's 70 ladies you could have saved, you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
fucking, they're 50 quid a week, and that's maybe a free lunch. And it's like, this is the problem I think they're creating is like if they're consistent across the board and everyone takes the same hit, you're like, okay, you're on board with. But I don't know. I don't know. Like, yeah, just put without, yeah, that it just kind of.
It was a bit confusing, but
I get where he's coming from, but to me, if
yeah,
I'm a United fan, I'm going. I still feel worried because the people still in control are the Glazers. I don't
yeah.
think they care. They just care about the money being in the bank account at the end of each year or month or whatever it is. And they're going, Jim, you get out there now. Because that's obviously what he got, Jim. Because if Jim Radcliffe's telling the truth
Yeah.
about the like Man United could have been out of money this year. Like think about that. They got Jim Radcliffe in on the 1st of January,
Mm.
and Jim Radcliffe said Man United. Jim Radcliffe went to Man United the 1st of January 2025, and Jim Radcliffe said Man United would have no money
Yeah.
in November of 2025. So he came in, put 400 or 300 million into it, I can't remember which number he said, and then it's gone.
Well, that's what.
Like,
And
think
Gary
about
actually
that.
mentioned it about the Glazers and the £200 million dividend they take out every year. But obviously, Jim Radcliffe was never going to slate basically his bosses, the the Glazers, in front of, or in the public eye. He kind of had a few uh, backhanders here and there, but it was nothing like he wouldn't call out the Glazers. Like, and his main point was, oh, we can't just throw money at the problem and it'll fix it. But it's like that's the whole fucking thing you're in. It's you kind of you
I
needed to throw money at the problem, which was your injection of cash into the club,
I
which is now
I,
gone.
I do agree with where you're gonna come from though. Where it's like if the system in place is broken, it's kind of like if you have I don't know, a net or something that's leaking fish or whatever what trying to analogy, or a bucket that's leaking.
Yeah,
You don't just go, this bucket's got a massive hole in the bottom and it's losing water. Right. Get more water and throw it into the bucket. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
that's the kind of analogy I think he's going for, is to say we gave these people in power in charge of making these big decisions, and like they did give them a lot of money, but they've spent it terribly. Like
yeah,
they spent it so bad. Like Radcliffe come in this year and he's paying still for their mistakes. Like the recruitment was terrible. It's even small things like you can make mistakes with players, but the Anthony mistake was crazy because not only the performance is one thing, but the fact is they probably spent an extra 40 million on him. They could have got him as well. The whole story is like they could have got him for like 40 originally,
yeah,
didn't, and then they were homing and this and that, and ended up panic buying him for 80. Mason Mount, they could have got him on a free. They ended up spending 60 million for him on his last year of his contract and put him on 250 a week. Like egregious, egregious mistakes. The Casemiro thing, Varane, the Sancho thing as well. Crazy money didn't work. It's just hemorrhaging money.
yeah. And it has been for years, and will continue to unless they turn it around. And to go off that, the turning it around bit, he also said that within the next 5 years, with what they're putting in, what they're instilling, and what they're putting in place in the club, that Man United will be the biggest club in the world, both revenue wise. They're building a new stadium, and also with winning silverware, all within 5 years. And I presume it will be 5 years down the road. He probably will be quoted on that as well. If
But
it
to
go
be
on.
fair, they're all right. Like Ten Hag won two cups. See, I winning silverware. That's one thing you can't take away from them.
Yeah,
Like
they
I know
did win silverware.
people try to meme them that, but the whole thing with Arteta doing good and that, like Ten Hag had a better spell if you think like successes and trophies and silverware as the end goal.
Yeah,
He's got them two more trophies in that trophy room.
that is true. He
No,
did win a Carabao Cup and FA
they were
Cup.
expensive trophies.
They
To be
were.
fair to them,
Yeah,
they were
they were.
expensive trophies, but they have two more trophies.
Yeah.
So
For
I
all the
mean,
hemorrhage and all the losses, they did get somewhere in the end.
well, I don't like again. It's not a good way to win trophies because the
No.
money they would have made for them trophies is fuck all.
Yeah.
But it's of course every club wants to win, but I think it's the manner and how you win in terms of like to spend that much money and like to spend that much money and have people on that many much wages. Like you need to be like literally challenging for Champions League and the league. Like that's the kind of money
every
you're
year.
looking at. But
Yeah,
like they were backed, but I think the people, the sporting director in place, just was a bit, not laser focused and kind of scattergun approach. You know,
and
um,
he
the
mentioned
money
that
was just the money was wasted. I think that's what he's saying now. See, the money we make now needs to be like
invested wisely,
really
basically.
invested wisely. And I
Mm.
do think they'll have to change their approach.
Yeah,
And I wonder will they go the kind of the Chelsea route, kind of getting younger players, younger team, and then mix and match kind of some experience with young players
I think we're
to
already
try and
seeing that with like their first purchase in Patrick Dorgu.
like don't forget they also bought thing the Ligt and Mazraoui as well in the summer.
Yeah, but which are actually two decent buys for the money.
Yeah, but they need to keep going with that. And
Yeah,
you know once they've uh, look, the Xerxes thing's not bad. They're going to need a striker and stuff. They're going to need a lot of key positions, like key positions that are usually very expensive. That's where it gets interesting
yeah.
because how they try and get an elite striker or a very good striker who can get them so many goals in the position they're in with no European football, and like you don't want to be spending. They can't spend 100 million. They
This
can't put them on 300 grand a week.
this
So
is
like,
where I was saying. Um, I think there's going to be, excuse me, to do with obviously funds and that to even fund this next part of the build. I think they're going to sell a lot of homegrown talent. I think you're going to see names like Kobe Mainu, Garnacho, Toby Collier, Ahmed Diallo. I think you're going to see
Ahmad's
names.
not leaving.
Well, maybe not Ahmed, but I'm just saying. I'm just using them as an example. Them
And the
names
thing
are
is,
going to be up for sale.
Collier won't. You won't get enough from him to justify it. Wouldn't make any sense. But the other two, maybe, maybe
Well, there's already
because
leaks
of
that
it.
that Kobe might not sign a new contract, that he will leave.
Yeah, it's just they're just trying to get a bit of cash into the club. To as he said, there's no more cash. Like just to
Mm,
try and maneuver a few things. But again, this is what I was saying before. Like all them funds that they had from years ago has kind of just trickled through the hands.
yeah,
Now all of a sudden, if you sell your talent, as in Garnacho and Moynu, and people are trying to meme him stuff like that, but these are academy players that had dreams of playing for United, whether
yeah,
good enough or not. When you sell them and you might make, I don't know how much you get for Garnacho, I've no idea. It could be 30, it could be 40, who knows? So say, for argument's sake, say you sell the both of them for 40 million each, right? They get 80 million quid in the hand, yeah?
yeah,
What does that get you? And remember, whatever it gets you needs to work because that 80 million, buy another Highland, for example, it's not 80 million anymore.
yeah.
It's now maybe 20. So you've now sold to academy players. I know this is kind of like maths in financials don't work exactly out like this, but just
Hypothetically,
as a hypothetically, they need to change the profiles I think they're targeting.
yeah.
If they're young profiles, again, it's a risk because you could buy three young profiles, it could be great and you've justified selling two promising young players for 80 million. You know what I mean? Like this is what I mean. Like they really have to be so clever with the purchases.
These
And
signings have to hit the ground fucking running.
like here's one for you, right? What's the aim for next season in terms of like finishing position? I know it's always like, oh, try and pick up a cup and finish
Um,
as high as possible, but like,
if we're comparing from this season, so I don't
will
think
it
they
be
win anything.
Europa League?
I don't think they'll win Europa League, and they're going to be
No,
probably.
no, I'm just saying like for next year, is it Europa League spot?
Uh, to be honest, I think they do look to even get a Conference League spot, maybe seventh.
But this is what I mean. Like what's the like obviously when the league starts off just like right get Champions League or whatever, but being realistic, I'm thinking I support Chelsea. I think they're going to strengthen, they're going to be tough. You have Liverpool, you have Arsenal, you have Man City, and you have also different teams. Like how will Bournemouth do next year if they keep the manager, can't remember his name now for some reason. Areola,
Areola,
to keep Areola to get a few more signings. I think they could be pushing for Europe. You've got Newcastle, you've got
Villa.
did I say Forest already? You've got Villa. You've even got Brighton side who can show up and do whatever. It's like that's a tough ask.
Yeah,
People like if you say Man United to get Man United to get Conference League next year, and people go, "Oh, will you stop, will you?" But you're going looking at the like genuinely like looking at the just the way it all lines up. You're going,
projection
I mean,
kind of indicates that that's maybe the height of what they can get next season.
yeah, and it's tough. Like Chelsea could end up a Conference League again this year. It's like
Yeah,
one loss, whatever, or a sticky. We've got a tough end of the season, and it's like people try and meme it and that, but the reality is, it's tough out there, man. These teams are getting better out there,
yeah,
and Chelsea are struggling. And he's sort of like even look at Chelsea right now, and this is going back to United to say
mm,
Chelsea have a few weak spots in the team, and that's what's holding them back. They're not blitzing people. They need like a striker or a key injuries. That happens with United next year. They're right back there. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? The team's just not functioning, not firing. There's so many teams around you can take points. Like look at Forest this year. Look at Bournemouth. And they're not even in their quotations top six sides. But the way they're
no,
playing, it's just they're unbelievable on the day. They're not fun to play against. So and I mean as well, like I don't even know what you get for winning the Conference League. I think it's only a few bob. But like
it wouldn't cover anything. Be it
But when you
wouldn't.
when you look at United making money, you're going like this is where I'm talking about the rebuild. Like
Yeah,
as he said, they try to inject a ton of players into the club to try and get Champions League football because that's where a ton of money is.
yeah,
You miss that and you're like, oh fuck, we're expecting to get at least 60 mil off that, and then we're goosed. It's like when I was 60 down, down to 20.
and that's not to say they could win the Europa League and qualify for Champions League, even though they are 15th. They could still do that. I don't think it will happen, but
That would be unreal, yeah.
if they did that, that'd be a massive upset to whoever gets fifth. Or I think it's if they win the Europa, I think they top five this season for England for Premier League will be Champions League. So I think they'll knock out the fifth spot, and then whoever was in fifth will go down to sixth, which will be Europa, and whoever was in sixth will go down to seventh, which is Conference. That's what fucked Chelsea this season. Use qualified for Europa League, which would have been that's about your level this season as well, to be honest. But obviously, use are much better than Conference. But because they had a shock victory in the summer against Man City, who were probably half baked and pissed on the pitch in the FA Cup, means they automatically qualified for Europa League and then pushed you down a peg, and other teams vice versa. So it could happen. It's not to say
Just
it
looking
can't.
there before we finish this, I
Mm.
think Jim Radcliffe actually gave another interview as well. I believe it was to like a paper because he talked about a few different things that didn't come up in this one.
Oh.
Um, a quote from he was actually asked. I think this was a newspaper. He was asked about the Alex Ferguson situation about his ambassador role being cut.
Mm.
And this is a quote I'm going to read out from Jim Radcliffe. So Jim Radcliffe was asked on Ferguson's ambassador contract being cut. I sat down with Alex and said to him that the club is spending more than it's making, that we're going to be in trouble and we can't afford to keep paying him 2 million a year. I gave him time to think about it, and he came back 3 days later after speaking to his son and said, "Fine, I'm going to stand down. That's my decision." I think that's a very good reflection on Alex because he put the club before himself. So there is more kind of details coming out, I think, in a different newspaper.
Yeah.
I also seen a different thing he talked about that wasn't brought up in the overlap one, so it must be a telegraph or something. Um, where he said that for some reason he said when he went through the books, whatever, he found United hired a body language expert, right?
Right.
Somebody was employed at Man United, a body language expert they're listed as, and they're being paid £185,000 a year. Like obviously, I'd say they'd probably let him go. The way he kind of worded it,
Yeah.
it looked like he was like, "What the hell?" But
Was he down in the books? Probably as like a sports psychologist or something, or
no, he was down as a body language
body
expert.
language. Oh,
But like
interesting.
just going to show you like the level of squandering of money is
Yeah.
absolutely
It's
staggering, and
pissed up a
that's
wall.
not down to the Glazers. They wouldn't have
No,
anything to do with that. So that's what I mean, where you talk about just constantly injecting money. Like you need to get to the root of the problem, and before you inject money, I'm not saying they're
it
whatever,
wasn't
but
just the owners, but it was completely mismanaged by
no,
multiple different people.
by everyone, yeah.
Yeah,
And also, just before you finish up, I do find it interesting why he all of a sudden now, I mean, it's a weird time, and what are we now? We're in March, the 10th of March, and today seems to be the day he picked. So it's not January, it's not Christmas time, it's not coming to the end of the year. It's just kind of like in that lull between, you know, basically Christmas and the end of the season. It's like
yeah.
nearly right in between. He did an interview with the Overlap, doing a PR thing, and he did some interview with the paper. And I think he did an interview somewhere else as well. So why all of a sudden he's gone on a PR run now is very interesting. I wonder if he's feeling the heat somewhere, and he's like, we better address it because
Is he maybe trying to get fans back on side as well, due to like in the
maybe
running, like United do have, they're in the quarterfinals currently of the or the Carabao Cup, sorry, the
Europa League.
Europa League. And
Maybe I feel like it's just a
so,
culmination of everything.
mm,
Maybe these just want to get out there and talk to them, but I think that's always the best way to talk. Like even with Chelsea, like I'd love an owner to sit down and not talk at a conference, a financial conference. I'd want them to sit down with an ex-legend and talk about Chelsea, talk about the club, talk about why you're hiring people and why, like, talk directly. You know what I mean? Don't
yeah,
be beating around the bush and talk through people and in statements. It's like it's nice to see somebody when you're talking, like, look me in the eye and tell me why you cutting this contract. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Jim did there. So I mean, fair play to him on that end, but
Still a lot of unanswered questions alongside the answers that he gave.
I don't know if they're unanswered. I think there was an answer for them, but there was just I would still
I'd be
have my
apprehensive.
doubts. Have my doubts.
Yeah,
I, I
definitely.
do I do understand where he's come from. Even when he talked about the appointment of he kept on Ten Hag, and I'm like, I do understand it because again, like imagine you get a new job, you're only in the door, and the deadline for something is like the next week, and you're going, what's going on? Who's gone? What's gone where? Yeah, you have to make a big decision right now. It's going to impact the rest of the season, or what? Give some whatever written report, something for the deadline. You're going, bro, I just what the fuck? I'm just got here. So I think the safest thing for him to do is to say he's have to win an FA Cup. If I sack him now, I'm going to look stupid. You
Yeah,
know, like, and they kept him on. It was obviously a mistake, and it did kind of ruin the season. It was just that I'm like, you know what? As a human being, I can understand that.
yeah,
It's so hard to take. I do understand where they are right now. Next year is when you'll find out about things. I think.
yeah.
You know,
I agree.
next year is when, yeah. So
Yeah, but that was the Jim Radcliffe interview anyway, and just our kind of spiel on it, just to give our opinions and what we think's going to happen. But yeah, that was us. Keep the head, lads. Keep the faith, and keep our lit. And we'll see you in the next one. Best of luck.